Dear students, welcome to our class on weather forecasting for agriculture 3. In the first two lectures, we tried to understand in the first lecture weather forecasting in India, objectives of weather forecast organization, current weather forecasting system, and basics of Agronomy services. In the first lecture, these four things we tried to understand. Number one, weather forecasting in India, objectives of weather forecasting, current weather forecasting system and its functioning, and Agronomy services, basics of Agronomy services. In the lecture 2, we tried to understand the responsibilities of weather forecasting centers. There are different weather forecasting centers at the central level, National Weather Forecasting Center; at the region level, regional weather forecasting centers are Southern India, Chennai; Northern India, Delhi; Eastern India, Kolkata; Western India, Mumbai; Central India, Nagpur; Northeastern India, Guwahati. Okay, so those are the things we try to understand. The weather forecasting scheme. The weather forecasting scheme means there is a three-tier structure: national level, regional level, and meteorological central level at the state level. That is the thing. And forecast generation. How the weather forecasting is generated between 10 and then 12:30 in the morning. That is from morning to afternoon. Meteorological centers, regional centers, they all have video conference or teleconference and everything. They finalize the generation of the they generate and then they give the Indian daily weather forecast. That's what. So in this class we try to understand the terminology used in weather forecasting. There is a terminology, specific terminology for weather forecasting. The generation of information for weather forecasting is absolutely difficult. Innumerable scientists, different locations, particularly 36 divisions, subdivision, 36 subdivisions, innumerable scientists work day in and day out and give that mid-noon, that is first midday of weather bulletin for every day. Whether it is a working day or otherwise, whether it is a what not to say, such a hard work they do it. They use certain terminology. It is our responsibility as the students of agriculture meteorology to know not deeply into the terminology, but at least we should know what is the basic terminology that our weather forecasting system is using. Now, the description of spatial distribution of rainfall and its intensity. Spatial distribution of rainfall, that means in different places how the rainfall is distributed and its intensity. These two are very, very important for the farmers, particularly in agriculture meteorology. Or any subdivision or district for any day is based on 24-hour accumulated rainfall ending 8:30 hours of IST of that day. What exactly does it mean? Today, today I am telling you the class. Now it is around 9 o'clock. Up to 8:30 tomorrow. What is going to happen? We call it as a forecast. But from yesterday 8:30 to today 8:30. Now it is 9 a.m. Yesterday 8:30 a.m. to today 8:30 a.m. What exactly had happened in these 24 hours? So, because this bit will come. The meteorological day accounts for a day which starts from 8:30 a.m. of a previous day ending today. That's what. So the 24-hour accumulated from 8:30 yesterday to 8:30 today. It is given as a meteorological day. The spatial distribution of rainfall and its intensity. What are the terminology that we try to understand? Actually, weather forecasting is also same. from today 8:30 to tomorrow 8:30, what is going to happen? Now, the spatial distribution of rainfall in observed as well as forecasted weather, the categories used are very, very simple, very, very interesting. Again, I would like to impress upon you that the description of spatial distribution of rainfall, how it is described. There are five categories. There are five categories for spatial distribution of rainfall. Number one, dry. Number two, isolated. Number three, scattered. Number four, fairly widespread. Number five, widespread. Dry, isolated, scattered, fairly widespread, widespread. Now, what is the descriptive term used for each one? If it is dry, the descriptive term is also dry. If it is isolated, one or two places. What is meant by one or two places? Less than or equal to 25% of the stations get, less than or equal to 25% of the stations get or expected to get the rainfall. That's what we call it as the isolated. So then what is meant by scattered? Scattered means, at a few places. At a few places, we call it as a scattered. What is meant by at a few places? 26 to 50% of the stations get or expected to get the rainfall. That's what we call it as the scattered and fairly widespread. Okay, at many places. What is meant by at many places? 50 to 75% of the stations are expected to get or get the rainfall. That's what we call it as the fairly widespread. And finally, widespread, it is at almost all places. What is meant by all places? 76 to 100% of the stations get or expected to get the rainfall. That's what we call it as the widespread. Dry, isolated, scattered, fairly widespread, widespread. Now, what is the criteria? This bit will come in the SRF. 2.5 millimeters and above rainfall is only taken into consideration. Less than that, it is reported as trace, TRACE. Now, this is with reference to spatial distribution of rainfall. It starts from dry to widespread. Okay, five categories. Now, with reference to intensity, there are 7 terms with reference to intensity of the rainfall. So, what are those 7 terms? Listen very carefully. Very light rainfall, moderate rainfall, heavy rainfall, very heavy rainfall, extremely heavy rainfall, and exceptionally heavy rainfall. So these are the 7 categories with reference to intensity of rainfall for 24 hours. Now, once again, for your academic interest, I would like to say that very light rainfall. What is meant by very light rainfall? Less than 2.5 mm, we call it as the very light rainfall. Rain had occurred, but it is less than 2.5 mm. That means, trace to 2.4. Okay, right. So what is the light rainfall? The light rainfall is 2.5 to 15.5 millimeters. Moderate rainfall 15.6 to 64.4 millimeters of rainfall. Heavy rainfall 64.5 to 115.5 millimeters. Very heavy rainfall 115.6 to 204.4 millimeters of rainfall. Extremely heavy rainfall greater than or equal to 204.5 mm rainfall. So these are from very light rainfall to extremely heavy rainfall. There is a 7th category, that is exceptionally heavy rainfall. What is exceptionally heavy rainfall? In and around that particular station, or in that particular station, or in and around that particular station during a season or during a month, what was the highest earlier? If that highest is crossed, that we call it as the exceptionally heavy rainfall of that particular area. Now, see, we try to understand the intensity of accumulated snowfall. Intensity of accumulated snowfall in same terms only: light, moderate, heavy, very heavy, extremely heavy. So, light means, okay, 10.4 centimeters or less; moderate, 10.5 to 64.4 centimeters; heavy, 64.5 to 115.5 centimeters; very heavy, 115.6 to 204.4 centimeters; and extremely heavy, 204.5 centimeters or above. In case of snowfall, it is centimeters, it's not millimeters, because it is measured in terms of depth, DEPTH. So that's why light starts from 10.4 centimeters or less to extremely heavy, 204.5 centimeters or above. So now, what is the probability of occurrence of any weather event? Probability of occurrence of any weather event, maybe rainfall, maybe temperature, maybe relative humidity. So there are 4 terms. What are those? Unlikely, likely, very likely, most likely. 4 terms. Any weather event, what is the probability of occurrence? We say that unlikely means, the probability of occurrence is unlikely means less than 25%. Likely means 25 to 50%. Very likely means 50 to 75%. Most likely more than 75% of the occurrence of that particular weather event. Now, in this class, we also try to understand with reference to temperature terminology 2 things. Terminology for temperature departure. Terminology for temperature departure we call from the normal. Terminology for temperature departure from normal. So there are 7 categories. Number 1, markedly below normal rainfall. Markedly below normal temperature. With reference to temperature 2, we are going to learn half minute each only. Number 1, once again I will like to impress upon you, terminology used for temperature departure from normal. From normal is that. Okay, so how much departure is there? So the first one is markedly below normal, minus 5 degrees centigrade or less. We call it as a markedly below. Appreciably below rainfall. Okay, appreciably below normal means minus 3.1 to 5 degrees centigrade. Below normal means minus 1.6 to minus 3. Normal minus 1.5 to plus 1.5. That means less or minus, plus or minus. Okay, that's what. 1.5 to 1.5, minus to plus. That's what we call as a normal. Above normal means 1.6 to 3. Appreciably above normal 3.1 to 5. Markedly above normal 5 and above degrees centigrade. Finally, in this class, we also try to understand the description of temperature tendency. The temperature tendency. First, how, just half minute before we try to understand temperature departure from normal. Okay, now what is the temperature tendency variation? The temperature tendency means the change in 24 hours, how much likely it is going to happen. It is expressed in 5 terms. These are the, what are those 5 terms? Are very simple: marked fall, appreciable fall, no large change, appreciable rise, marked rise. These are the 5 terms. For your academic interest, once again I would like to say, marked fall in temperature tendency means minus 4.1 or less. Appreciable fall means minus 2.1 to 4 degrees centigrade. No large change, minus 2 to plus 2, no large change. Appreciable rise, 2.1 to 4 degrees centigrade. Finally, marked rise, 4.1 or more degrees centigrade on that day. That is temperature tendency. That is the change in the temperature. So, these are the general terms that we use in our weather forecasting. In the next class, we try to understand a few more. Thanking you for your very patient hearing.